In this episode,
I don't know, I'm just a woman. I will not pass them on. They get to deal with me.
You don't cruise the internet going, I'm just going to check out the heat pumps. They're so lovely.
And he got stuck on her bathroom floor like a turtle on its shell.
Just let us do our thing. It's nothing to do with them.
Allowing men not to be macho is a really good thing.
Man, strong. Woman, weak.
Well, you know the delta between outside and inside has to be XYZ and blah, blah, blah.
You can't educate corned beef, can you?
hi and welcome to another episode of the award-winning Homeowners Q&A podcast. I'm your host, Mars, and today we're diving into a topic that's as overdue as it is important, gender bias in the world of heat pump installations. We've heard the comments, we've seen the outdated assumptions, and we've been asked to address them head-on, so today we're going to do just that. Joining us are three women working at the sharp end of the renewable heatings industry: Briony Price from Phoenix Plumbing, Vicky Shaw from Eco Trade Southwest, and Jo Haddon from Snug Systems. Welcome, ladies. Before we begin, we'd like to say a huge thank you to Mitsubishi Electric, makers of the EcoDan heat pump range, for sponsoring this episode. Mitsubishi Electric have long championed innovation, quality and inclusion within the renewable heating sector, and their support for today's discussion speaks volumes. By backing this important, long overdue conversation, they're helping challenge outdated assumptions and shine a spotlight on the incredible talent and the capability of women working in renewables. We're proud to have their support and hope that this conversation moves the needle in the right direction, and thank you again to Mitsubishi Electric for making this episode possible. So Briony, let's start with you. Have you ever been directly questioned or doubted by a customer because you're a woman?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have literally had a customer female customer, turn around and say, I don't believe what you're saying. Go back and ask one of the men. Yeah. It's a little bit less common now because I've been plumbing for so long. I've had the same customer base for probably 20 odd years as well. And because I live in a small island and there's not many women, and I'm probably the most well-known of the female plumbers over here, mostly people are just not surprised these days. But yeah, you would do occasionally still get the odd strange comments. And more so if I'm there with my colleague who is male. So it doesn't matter whether it's something that he knows more about or something that I know more about. They'll always revert to his opinion as being the correct one, more proper.
So, Jo, I mean, you're obviously not on the tools, but, have you ever gone to a job perhaps to maybe go meet a client, and have they had kind of a reaction going, why is there a woman coming to actually talk to me about my heating or my plumbing?
Most of the time with clients, I spend quite a reasonable amount of time before I get off my bum and go to their house. And I've talked to them for about an hour, at least an hour on the phone, going through systems, by which point they kind of know I do know more than them, and I kind of do know what I'm talking about. So it's usually at that point okay. It's when you go on site to discuss the installation with other plumbers, other electricians, that transitional sort of no man's land between what we're doing and other tools are doing on site. That's when you come across issues, or you talk on the phone and you immediately know someone is just not listening and you're a woman, and I'm not making excuses for women saying, sometimes people don't like you, but a lot of the time, certain people just don't get it and don't believe it. I know within 10 minutes, and I'm not going to waste my time with this. It's no point. I mean, the most recent one, I went on site and we've done hours and hours of work on design, a really complex design, got on site, and I'd been speaking to the wife, and the husband came along and just said, oh, but they don't work, do they? And I was just like, you've got one in your car, you've got one in your fridge in your kitchen, your heat pumps are everywhere. Yes, they were. And I had to then have a half an hour conversation about how heat pumps operate and how they do actually work. But you could see him thinking, no, don't get angry anymore.
So Vicky, same question as I asked Briony at the outset. So have you ever been directly questioned at a job? And if you do, how do you actually deal with that bias?
I've been very lucky, a bit like Joanne. I'm the first port of contact for most customers. So because I get to talk to them on the phone first and we have this long chat, they're able to know me, speak to me, ask questions and do whatever. So when I meet them, a lot of that's been removed. I have had situations like Briony says, where people have perhaps questioned. And especially I'm often there with a male. So, I work with my dad and work with other males in our organisation. And sometimes they will refer to that male. And sometimes that's fair, because sometimes the question, perhaps they knew the answer better than I did. And sometimes it's unfair. And I think it's very difficult to try and change anyone's mind like that, other than just show them what you can do, and if they accept you to do the job, then you've just got to deliver, haven't you? And if you deliver, that's it.
When you arrive on site and all the trades are all busy doing, and you huddle around to have that conversation, there is usually one person, not all the time, but there is one person, male, who knows more than you, always knows more than you in their mind, but they know nothing about heat pumps. They've not had any education around heat pumps. Actually, they've got not a Scooby-Doo about thermodynamics either, but we won't go there. How do you deal with that person on site? How do you deal with them?
It's changed over the years. So when I was a lot younger and pre-perimenopausal, I used to be super tolerant. When I had lots of fluffy bunny hormones, I would gently explain things, or I would smile sweetly and be like, oh, yeah. Now I have no time for it. If I see or I'm confronted or I have that kind of behaviour put right in front of me, I'll call it out now. Whether it's like might be just like a bit of gentle ribbing in front of their mates and things like that, or just proving the point. I trained dogs for many years as a bit of a sideline, and I keep the same theory that I don't tolerate or reward behaviour in customers and tradespeople that I don't wish to see. If they're behaving in such a way, then I won't tolerate it. I will do something to change that.
I agree. I think with age comes a lot of things. And I think it's interesting because we are all older and probably all similar age. So the way that we would handle it is very different, I think, to my daughter, who would go in. And without age on your side, I think it's very hard. And she questions herself all the time about things. And I get that. If you're confident and you know what it is that you're doing, and especially if you're the one there to do the job, this is your job, not theirs. We don't get involved with the plasterer or, the brickie and start butting in on what they should be doing. So just let us do our thing. It's nothing to do with them.
Vicky, I think you're actually in quite an interesting situation because you mentioned that your daughter is now an apprentice within your company. So with that, I would assume comes even more training and trying to build her up, to kind of deal with the trade. So what kind of lessons are you trying to impart on kind of the next generation of female installers?
You need to have resilience, and maybe you shouldn't, but you do. Whether this is just me and her or whether Joanne and Briony feel the same, that I think there is an element of wanting to prove yourself and do a good job and feeling like perhaps you are inferior, especially when you're learning. She's learning that she's just got to accept she's on a process. Right now, she's not going to be able to do everything that our engineer can do, who's been doing it for 20 years. He can go and it's done. And she's like, oh, it's hard, isn't it? For women coming into the industry, you need resilience. I think you need to really want to do it. You need to have an interest in it. And if you've got those things, get your head down, get the job done, and the proof is in your work at the end of the day.
Whether you're male or female, if you're an apprentice, I think any of us would say if we had an apprentice, you just want someone who is super keen, wants to be there, wants to ask questions, takes in that knowledge and transfers it to a different application. It doesn't matter on gender then, and that's just the kind of trainee that you really want to have, isn't it? But I think as females we get a bit of unfairly judged. I always say, like, if a man does something stupid, they say, isn't he stupid? And if a woman does something stupid, they say, aren't women stupid? If I make a mistake at work, doesn't matter what it is, it's not because I'm human and I've made a mistake. It's because I'm a woman in a man's job and I shouldn't be there. So you've constantly got to sort of battle that, that kind of assumption that anything that goes wrong is purely a gender-based mistake, and not just that we're human.
Just to actually build on that point, so the one thing that actually made me laugh when I was researching for this particular episode is that, given how many bodged heat pump installations there are in the UK, and the amounts of men that have actually fitted those, it always makes me laugh.
The only jobs I've gone back to that we've not installed, that people have asked for help for because they've not worked, they've been installed badly, have been installed by men, strangely enough, and have been designed. The system has been designed very badly by a man. So, but we don't go in, do we, ladies, and go, oh, here we are, we're women, we're super women, we're sorting it out, As some chaps go in with their capes on. We're here. Men and women are very different anyway. It's not about intelligence, but the approach to life is quite different. And it's just the wiring inside our brains is different. And a woman, especially apprentice, will want to do the right thing all the time, every single time. And a mistake really, really hurts women. They're terrified of mistakes. Whereas don't you find with chaps and apprentice chaps and older chaps, they make a mistake and it's just like, oh, well, off we go. And it's not quite so impactful. So there's advantages to having, I think, women in the industry because they are so particular and they are so worried about getting it wrong and desperately want to get it right. And that is just a psychological thing with a lot of women. So in a way, I think women are better.
They were talking when they talk about like job applications, like when there's like a list of requirements to apply for a job, and they talk about like the quite really high percentage of men who will apply for a job even though they only meet sort of like 50-60% of the job requirements, whereas a woman would not apply purely because she doesn't meet every single one. And then there's that like that Dunning-Kruger effect, isn't it, where we know our stuff but you'll still doubt yourself. And for many years as a younger plumber, if there was a male tradie in the room, I would always assume that they knew more than me, even when they didn't. It's just that default mechanism that we have. And I think there's a lot of that to kind of get over, as well as just seeing women on sites.
Thinking about heat pumps? Then you need the ultimate guide to heat pumps, our latest book for homeowners. With insights from over 35 industry experts who have a combined experience of over 600 years, they're here to answer every question you have and guide you every step of the way. This book will be the best money you'll ever spend on your heating. Pre-order your copy today and take control of your heat pump with absolute confidence. Link in the description. On our forums and on our website and on our YouTube comments, we just don't allow any kind of stupid negative comments. As part of my research for this episode, I did go out and try and find some, and there were just some comments that absolutely blew my mind. And I did actually just make these a little bit more concise. So there's one that said, there's no way that a woman could fit a full heat pump system on her own. It's just not physically realistic. So why do you think that homeowners and the industry actually equate physical strength with competence, when we all know that heat pumps are down to design, planning, and teamwork? I know a lot of guys, and there's not many that are going to pick up a 150 kilogram heat pump by themselves anyway. So why do you think that is, Vicky?
I don't know why anyone would start off with that, because for me, looking at this from a perspective of running a business, installing a heat pump is either a 2, 3 or 4 person job, dependent on what we're doing. So we might be in there doing multi-technology and we'd have more people on site. I'd never send one person in to do a heat pump, not even if he was Arnold Schwarzenegger and he knew his stuff, because A, you've got lone working, B, you've got manual handling, you've got working at height. There's so many reasons why you wouldn't send someone in on their own, regardless of whether they're male or female. So for someone to come and say that a woman couldn't do that is really focusing on the wrong thing. I mean, even a cylinder, you're trying to get a cylinder up someone's beautifully decorated staircase with pictures on the wall and stuff. That you need 2 people to be able to carefully maneuver it. Not even a man on his own. We can lift a cylinder, absolutely. We all can, but you're not going to be able to do it safely and sensibly. And so there's so many other things to that for me. So many other things.
It's another one of those outdated gender stereotypes. Man, strong. Woman, weak. You look at people and, you look at some of the lads these days, they're built like racing snakes. There's nothing of them. And then you've got, you've got strong women, you've got weak women, you've got strong men, you've got weak men. It's about finding what works for you in your life, where your niche is. It's not just purely because you were born as one thing that, you suddenly automatically got like all this technical knowledge in your genitalia or something just because you were born a man, or suddenly, like you're super strong and you can carry anything. I look at like the older generation that taught me, they were of the era of lead pipe work. They would stick a cast iron bath on their backs, and go up the stairs like a tortoise, on their own. those days are long gone. You know, everybody, like Vicky mentioned, you know, it's the manual handling, the safety of it. You know, even the guys these days aren't hoofing stuff around on their own. It's a bit clutching at straws for me of like, oh no, you can't be a woman in a man's world because you're not strong. Like, well, that's why we have lifting equipment and things like that now, isn't it? So, you know, it's making life easier and safer and better for everybody, but they still want to make it like it's because women are around that, like, oh, we gotta go and do this now. And yet they're all benefiting from the fact that there are more women in the trades.
Going back to the health and safety, women coming into the job and allowing men not to be macho is a really good thing. It actually allows a man to say, I'm not going to be able to do that. It's 105 kilos. And, you know, he might only weigh 90 kilos. You know, how's he going to be lifting that? And it allows men to sort of go down on the ego side and actually use health and safety and lifting equipment and help. So I think in that way, it's actually a really good thing. Yeah, but there are 3 levels, I think, to every install. It's the design side right from the beginning and the assessment and designing the right system, getting all the loads right, getting that. Then there's the heat pump side and then there's the installation side. And all 3 of those women can do. A lot of women don't go into the trades because they don't feel it's going to be their thing. And when they do go in, or they get married to someone, or they know someone and they start watching it, they're like, well, actually, it's really interesting. I quite like that. It's not what I thought it was going to be.
Vicky, I really like what Joe actually had to say there in terms of kind of women bringing a little bit of finesse to the job, perhaps. And I'll actually use a really good example because my wife and I laugh about this all the time. So we had to change the tap in our Belfast sink, and she always says it could only be a man that would have actually designed the architecture underneath the Belfast sink, because you literally have to be a Cirque du Soleil contortionist to be able to get under there. I'm not a small guy, and it was absolutely impossible to get in there. So do you think that having more women coming to jobs will actually add a little bit more finesse and a little bit more kind of gentleness to an installation?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. We've got the added benefit of having smaller hands and arms and wrists and being able to squeeze into spaces. So I know for one, certainly me and my daughter have been shoved in all the small holes. And, you know, if she was changing a tap the other day in our offices, and she was up there, she was going, just really grumbling and everything about trying to like do what she was doing, because I was watching her, we were laughing because she was completely contorted trying to get under the sink and do all the stuff that she needed to do. And it's difficult. And I mean, even harder for a man. They are bigger, aren't they?
I always do wonder when you see like really, really big male plumbers, and I'm just like, how do you even manage? Like, I struggle getting in places, and you know, I'm a size 10 and I'm quite small and flexible. We had a client that we picked up years ago purely because the previous company that she used sent a very, very large plumber. And he got stuck on her bathroom floor like a turtle on its shell. And she had to ring their office and ask them to send another plumber to come and get the original plumber up off her floor, because she was like in her 80s and she couldn't pick him up. But I think from a sort of like a work perspective, I think when a woman's doing an install, we're not just house bashing. You know, it's not just, right, I'm on a price and I'm in and I'm going to just get this in. I don't really care. And it looks great for my house. Meh. You know, we're kind of more thinking about, well, hopefully this is going to be a retained future customer. I'm going to keep on the maintenance. So you want to make it future friendly, because if you're the one that's going to go back and maintain it or have to, you know, make repairs or whatever over the years, why stitch yourself up for the future? I find sometimes it takes longer to do a bad job than it would if you just did a nice, neat job and it was really sensible and well thought out. You might as well just get it right the first time and cause yourself, you know, have a lot less problems in the future.
Are you thinking about getting a heat pump? Then don't get caught out by a bad installation. Bodge Buster is your essential guide to asking the right questions and spotting red flags before it's too late. Written from real homeowner experience, this book gives you the knowledge to avoid costly mistakes and make informed decisions. Get Bodge Buster today in print or for Kindle, link in the description. Is it gender bias in reverse for me to say that women pay more attention to detail and a little bit gentler inside a home than a male installer might be?
And some of our guys are really, really good. And I think probably all of you work with guys that are pretty good, because otherwise you just don't want to work with them. I think one, you can always tell if someone's rude, they're rude about everything they do. So they'll be rude to clients, they'll scratch walls, they won't care, and they'll bing bang bosh something. They won't, obviously technical term there, they won't be careful and they won't take care. because there's not so many women in the industry, so I couldn't tell you if I've come across a bad woman because I haven't. But I've equally come across great guys and great plumbers who are really, really good. But I do think in women's nature, and I know this is being sort of, I'm not being anti-men or up women. I just think again the genders are very different. We are very, very different. I think women's view of wanting the client to be happy is really strong, and I think with some chaps don't have so much of that in them. They'll do a good job and they'll say that's what we quoted for, that's what we've done. But I think women want to end the job with the client really, really happy. I mean, I know I do, and every woman I know, and I know a lot of business women running their own businesses, and they're all the same. That level of customer care, that customer wanting that customer to be right and then be happy.
So, Vicky, just building on what Joe said there, you obviously do a lot more customer support. Have you ever been put in a situation where somebody's picked up the phone, called you guys to ask a technical question about something, and has said to you, well, I'd rather speak to a man because they're going to know more than you?
I think I've had one or two. And it's only one or two, to be fair. Again, it possibly age related, but I find it very hard not to take that as a challenge. I will not pass them on. They get to deal with me. And if they don't want to deal with me, that's okay. They can go somewhere where they feel comfortable. Because if I don't know, I'll ask. And there's been plenty of times someone's asked me a question and I've said, I'm not sure. I'm going to check this and I'll get back to you, because in my own mind, I'm thinking I do just need to double check this, or they've asked a question perhaps I haven't been asked before, and I'll do that. But if I know the answer, I don't need to refer to anybody else.
I see some unusual bias from other women, where women are so used to playing the helpless female and going, I don't know, I'm just a woman. They find it really confronting when they're dealing with me. It's quite a challenging thing for them. I don't know whether they feel a bit threatened or something. I've had a woman on the phone where I've said, can you just flick your heating on the hour before I come out so that it's warm when I get there? She's like, well, I don't know, I'm a woman. I'm like, well, me too, love, and I run this company, so turn your heating on.
Anything to do with installations or plumbing or trades has always been men. So it's kind of been sort of embedded. And I think the next generation, Vicky, your daughter, and all her friends will have totally different views. I think in 20, 30 years, these conversations will be very thin and we won't have them. In my work, actually, with most of the clients I deal with, because we just deal with heat pumps, we don't do anything else apart from secondary. We'll fit new secondary systems for them. So we're only really dealing with people who've really investigated in heat pumps, and they're quite invested in a new technology. So a lot of the women I deal with and the men I deal with are quite bright, and so they're really interested in whoever you are and what you're saying. A lot of the driving force is the husband who wants to change from oil or gas or something, wants a heat pump. And I sit and spend a lot of time with their partners, their wives, or whoever it is, because their first question is it going to work? Am I going to be warm? I don't care about anything else, just tell me that's going to happen. And so I then go into quite surface level technology education with them, because the husband's done all that, has to be said. He's done a lot and I've spoken a lot about it. And then I'll sit down with them and go through the base level technology to show them and educate them how it does work. Because there's no point just saying to someone, yes, of course it'll work. Because they're like, well, that doesn't tell me anything. That just tells me it's going to work, but I want to know a bit more. And you can see them blossoming into the knowledge and liking it and being involved and asking more questions and then deciding on what systems and how it's going to work. And then they open up. So many guys do this. They go in really technical because, I'm really clever. And they don't go in at a nice level, just gently working your way into the deeper stuff. So people can come with you on that journey, as opposed to, the delta T between outside and inside has to be X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, no, people don't want to hear that. I find that with a lot of the female customers I deal with, actually, if you start this level and they get deeper and deeper, and they're the ones actually who will phone me and start talking about the controls and how they want to manage it. I feel very blessed to be of this generation in the fact that I am doing this. But my mother, who is 83, her parents wouldn't let her be a journalist and she had to be a nurse. And she hated it. Vicky, your daughter's going to have less and less and less. It's going to be great.
Are you new to heat pumps and feeding lost? Then From Zero to Heat Pump Hero helps you understand, operate and optimize your system. No jargon, just simple practical advice from one homeowner to another. Take control of your heating and save energy. Get your copy now. Link in the description. got another comment, which is another hysterical one. Well, hysterical. This person said, no offense, but I'd feel far more comfortable if a man was doing the job. I just trust them with more technical stuff. Why do you think that trust and technical confidence are still so kind of based on gender, even though kind of when it comes to qualifications, you guys have all done the same courses?
I don't know, Mars. I think it's such an outdated view. None of us are men bashing. We're all working together in a team, and ultimately men have pioneered this industry, haven't they? They've paved the way, but we have got something to add, and we have got something to offer, like Joe said, and it's really important actually that we work together as a team in all of this, because then what happens is the homeowner gets the best, and all this sort of silly little infighting and saying that your qualification isn't as, you can't possibly be the same as somebody else. I mean, that to me is just ludicrous. And I wouldn't give it a time of day, to be honest. If we're all doing the same job and providing a really good service with a really well-designed system, what's the problem?
Briony, do you ever feel that there's kind of additional silent pressure on you to overperform or over-explain your work because you are a woman?
Possibly. I mean, I am a terrible over-explainer, but that's just my neurodivergence. And also, I think part of it is that, like if you've got a passion for your job, you want the client to understand what tech they have in their home. Like, I'm not asking you to know the whole ins and outs and exactly, like every final detail of like how your system works, but I want you to understand the basics. I want you to understand what's going on. I want you to understand how to get the best out of it, or just sort of like the basic sort of things to get you by. Like Joe was, just to pick up on what Joe was saying about talking to like the clients and explaining things in a way that they understand. I think that then becomes really empowering. A lot of the time the women may be the ones that are primarily at home and using that heating system and using that tech. At the end of the day, the guy he might have made the original decision as to what system they wanted fitting, but realistically it's 9 times out of 10 it's going to be the woman of the house who is going to be operating it, running it, ringing up the engineers anytime there's a problem, and and having to deal with people coming in and out and fixing things. So I think it's a good thing to sort of start explaining more, involve them in the process.
Joe, I think, again, Briony raises a very interesting point there. So do you tend to find that you do get a lot more men that are actually making the decision to move to a heat pump from their fossil fuel boiler, or is it kind of a little bit more half-half, or is it more women?
Well, if you just go on inquiries, when people inquire, I would say 8 out of 10 will be an inquiry from a man and the occasional woman. And I'm going to say this, okay, I don't think heat pumps set the world on fire on excitement. That's the problem. I like them, and I've been told at dinner parties to not talk about them anymore because I'm really boring. So I'm not allowed to talk about them. You don't cruise the internet going, I'm just going to check out the heat pumps. They're so lovely. I think it's a bloke thing looking at the heating, and, they want to save the bills. They want to do this. And whereas a lot of the time, if a conventional marriage with wife with children at home or something, she's busier doing, I've got to get food on the table. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. She's got from 6:30 in the morning till 9:30 at night packed, and he might have a few spare moments. Being really sexist here against blokes here, but a lot of the people that fit heat pumps with us or want heat pumps with us are sort of 45 plus. The younger couples are definitely more of a team, and there's more information equally to both, and it really is an informed decision by both. I never negate to make sure that both parties are really in the conversation, so much so that when we write to them, it's both their names. The older sort of category, some of them don't really want to know that much technical. They just want to know if it's going to work, and I'll give them that information. But it's being driven by the chats, and I just don't know why that is. I don't know why that is. Heating's not one of those sexy subjects, is it? People need it. They don't necessarily think, well, great, yeah, I'm really excited about spending £15,000 on my heating system. I'm excited about that. Tell them they can spend $50,000 on a brand new car. They'll get excited. And that won't give them a return on investment. It will just be a carbon guzzler, most likely. They'll spend that on a car, but yeah, no one gets really massively excited about their heating system. I've never gone back to a system a year later and they've gone, do you know what? I love this so much. I look at it every day and it's, polish it.
So Vicky, when I look at our own audience, so literally the forums and the YouTube channel, is 99.5% male. And I think the one thing that actually does surprise me, because Joe and Briony have both hit on it, is that it is a household thing. So I don't understand why women aren't maybe a little bit more interested in understanding more about their heat pump systems. Because to me that makes sense, but maybe it is because I'm a guy, that it is quite technical, and there is quite a lot of common sense to be able to go on and understand how the heating works, to try and optimize it, to drop your bills, to stay warmer, to stay more comfortable. Why do you think that is?
It is a generalization, isn't it? But I think there is a lot of elements of our life that one or the other person does. And I think if you look at every sort of couple that you know, across your friendship group or family, you often find the one partner does one set of jobs and the other partner does the other set. And I think heating comes into that. The biggest joke I have with customers when we're talking about their design and their setup is what temperature they like to live at when we're having those conversations. It's always the same. The woman wants it, warmer, and the man wants it cooler. And we have a huge amount of inquiries, a larger proportion of inquiries in the Southwest from lone elderly women wanting heat pumps. I've spoken to so many older women that have made the decision themselves that they want to do this, and that they're doing all the research on it. So maybe that's a geographical thing. I don't know. But certainly in my experience, it's not just men.
If there is somebody that's actually watching this show and they've had a quote or an engineer turn up at their property that is a woman, and they are second guessing that, what would you say to them to, not freak out, and that, that installer is probably going to be as competent, if not better, than a man?
That's a really hard one, because I think if you'd have asked me 10, 15 years ago, I'd have had an answer. Whereas now I'm probably like Joe says, it's an expensive install. It's a big financial commitment, switching from a fossil fuel across to the heat pump, and I think, with that kind of outlay and that commitment to a new technology within your home, if you're going to allow the fact that a woman's got bits on her body that a man doesn't, and vice versa, influence your decision, then I don't know, you can't educate corned beef, can you? I don't know whether there's really much you can kind of say. And I think also, in my experience, I find sometimes the more you try to justify the fact that gender is completely irrelevant to technical knowledge, the more you look like you're trying to defend yourself because there's something to defend. And I think it sometimes makes people a little bit more suspicious, because then they're like, well, why are you trying to sort of stick up for women in trade so much? So yeah, it's a bit of a hard one.
I think Vicky said it earlier. If a woman turns up to do the job and the household are nervous that there's a woman, she just proves it by doing the job properly. Actually, women bring less ego to the game. So sometimes when I come across it, and probably you guys come across it, you're not quite so I am. You're more, I need to make these people like me and understand what's going on. And I think a lot of women do that. There's less ego. I think there's a lot of people in this industry that do really good jobs and do it really, really well. And that's the thing, is I think a lot of women don't take their ego. They're much kinder. People, guards go down, and the communication levels start happening. So I think it's an advantage being a woman.
If you've got any questions about heat pumps, then you need to join the Renewable Heating Hub forums. You can connect with other homeowners, share experiences, and get advice on heat pumps and renewables. Sign up today and be a part of the conversation. Link in the description. So that wraps up another episode of the Homeowners Q&A podcast. A massive thank you to Briony, Vicky, and Joe for such an honest conversation, and a special thanks to Mitsubishi Electric, makers of the EcoDan heat pump range, for sponsoring this episode. And if you haven't already, pre-order your copy of The Ultimate Guide to Heat Pumps, our new book that's packed with expert advice and everything you need to make informed, confident decisions about your heat pump journey. Link in the description. Until next time, stay warm, stay green, stay tuned. Goodbye.